Okay. And you guys have another call set up for tomorrow, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And what we're doing is we're recording this session, Brian. And tomorrow's meeting, Connie is going to drive the demo, and we'll have this recording to share with folks that weren't able to make today.
Okay.
All right. So with that, I will start our meeting with introducing Mark and Rick from Propago. They are our partners with a new storefront technology that we're evaluating. And they've been working with us on a prototype of the Hologic site. And they've been kind enough to develop a demo site, not with all the functionality, but just to give you a flavor of what it could look like. And their goal today is to give us a good understanding of the enhancements and the features of the Propago system, and to demonstrate some of the efficiencies and upgrades to what we're using today. So with that, I'll let Rick take over the demo, and feel free to stop and ask questions along the way, folks at Hologic. And Rick, take it away.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Mike. And one of the one things I'd like to start with, if y'all have any questions or want to interrupt me, please do so at any point. I get a little bit long in the tooth, so there's not going to be any hurt feelings if y'all interrupt or have questions. It works out better that way many times. A little bit about Propago, our technology. We've been kicking it around for about 20 years. We deal with a lot of very large brands with complex marketing supply chains. We want your marketing portals to be that centralized place for the entire brand. So whether it's your print items, promo items, apparel items, digital delivery, we want to be that centralized place for all your brand assets. And really we enforce three main pillars when we're looking at brand portals and brand marketing is maintaining your spend levels that you want, maintaining the inventory levels that you want, and maintaining your brand identity that you want, right? So those are the three kind of columns that we build our foundation on top of. So we set up a quick just demo site for the Hologic, some of the products. I mean, we've seen that y'all have thousands of products on the current Goodway system. So these are just kind of a snapshot of a few. So this is a sample of somebody going in that only has access to see the breast sections, right? So each system or each category in the system can really be dictated on who gets rights to see what, right? So it can get really granular to a level of user groups, to a product category, or even per product per user type basis. So you could get extremely granular. The entire site is built in responsive technology. So really all that means is if they're on a digital device, an iPad or a phone or something like that, it's going to reshape for their screen size. And that does a lot more than just squinch everything down. It changes things like menu structures, it changes everything. So from the ground up, we've kind of developed it with a thought in mind of responsiveness. We hold a lot of information on your product. So right now we have item types populated, but you could have 20 different custom fields. You could have HTML in the descriptions. You can make it so they can go and just grab their downloadable PDFs straight from the site. So really easily, if I just wanted to go grab a copy of this, I could. You also have the ability to watermark those, so they have to actually go through a checkout to get the digital file, so you have more of a record that they pulled it down. So it's really up to you and how you want that kind of mechanism to work, right? And what works best for your organization. It's a very simplistic ordering experience. I mean, as your users go in, if they've shopped online in the last decade, they're fine shopping here, right? So we've gone to great strides to make sure it's not printerish, because typically the end users, the sales reps, the affiliates, the partners, the end users are not trying to submit a print job. They're just trying to pull down their assets that they need. So adding to carts is extremely simplistic. Everything has real-time lead times. It knows real-time inventory. This can be hidden or shown based on different groups of users as well. So, if you at the corporate administrative functions want to see inventory, you can see real-time inventory, as opposed to maybe sales reps don't need to see inventory. They just want to see a lead time. On the left, we have, and I'll go into our Acme demo site in a second, which kind of shows a lot of different features. This one's a little bit limited right now. But we also have things like item types turned on, or filters turned on here. So if you want filters, it automatically indexes all your parts and knows these different filter points. So, and with these filters, they're all relative to what page you're on and what you're looking at. So if I go look at, you know, an overall product search here, the filters are built from the entire result set, right? So it's always dynamic, always changing, and just makes it really rich. One other thing to point out here, so I'm just gonna go find, let's just say, it doesn't matter. Search is extremely intelligent. So with search, I could just go in there and say, hey, you know, I want to find, and it looks within the product, it looks within the description, the SKU, the product name, and brings back relevance-based results. So, you know, if I go find Butler, there's my Butler. With y'all's asset catalog that's gotten very, it's a lot of products in there, search might be something that's more and more critical to your end users, so they don't have to go browse and find everything. They just type in what they want and it's there, right? You can daisy chain on top of searches, which I'll show you in a minute, but that's the essential kind of flow. So search is really critical when it comes to bringing it together.
Hey, Rick.
Yeah.
Hey, Rick, this is Vic. Question for you. You might be covering this later, but I'll just ask the question now. Can you create like, you know, favorite items or something like that, things that they tend to order over and over again?
Yep, so per user, they can do that. So see this little star icon? I go in here and say, hey, I love these 3, 4, 5, 6 things, right? And then in my account, my favorites are always gonna be there, right? And when I go into the demo site, I'll show you a little bit more about what we call the library, which is a different thing. But so I just put these items into my favorites, and now they're there, right? So I don't even have to browse; they're just here, and it'll always be here until I remove them.
Okay, thanks.
So, no problem. You know, and this is a view that we've just set up and limited it to the people who have access to breast material. So if I go in and, you know, if I emulate somebody else's login, and we have different ways for people to log in. So I don't know if y'all are doing like a single sign-on or any kind of, you know, advanced identity system, but we support SAML as well as TXML workflows. So, you know, a lot of organizations, they might have those other ones. But if I log in as a different user here, you'll see that my presentation is different. I see different stuff, and more than likely, we got your products all mixed up, and you know, some of these might not be surgical, but we guessed based on your website. So, you know, we've learned a lot about your product lines in the interim. But this is a view of a surgical user, right? And it really depends on, are you really trying to make those lines where your users are really, they only get to see bone and they only get to see surgical, or is it, you know, in overall cataloging, you're just trying to limit? So you have a lot of different controls or viewing controls you can put into place based on your core business need. So with that said, if it's okay with y'all, I'll jump over to our just standard demo site. So with our standard demo site, I'm just going to showcase a couple things really quickly. So first, I'm going to give myself a proper login. But with the standard demo site, you know, you'll notice that the branding is totally different. The look and feel is different. I see, you know, different stuff. So you have a lot of ability to make it your own, or make it really look like HoLogic. Even going down to the URL, you can white label the URL completely out. So you can get very granular. We have features. On this particular site, I have admin features. My user account does. So with admin features, you're going to be able to get into a rich set of reports, products reports, user maintenance, product maintenance, just a variety of kind of elevated rights for my account that I can go in and view different things. And this is probably more important for your corporate folks than the end users. But with dashboards and different reporting mechanisms, you know, as things are burning through the platform, as orders are being placed, inventory is being depleted, things are kind of moving around, you'll always have a real-time view of what's shaking. With dashboards, it's more of a graphical view. So I just see kind of from a high level with graphics of what's going on as far as products moving, product pricing, average days open, things like that. Granted, this is our demo site, so hopefully you're not going to be running 50 days open. But then even breakdowns by product or item type where I could see, you know, what's running essentially. And really the goal of all these kind of data points and reporting is to allow y'all to be better product managers and better supply chain captains, where you could really see kind of usage rates. Do you want to produce digitally? Do you want to go offset? You know, those kind of decisions that your supply chain has.
Rick, can you get this that type of information? Can that be by the different divisions that we have, like breast and skeletal versus surgical?
Yeah, so I mean, it all depends on kind of how we set things up, but you know, here we have it segmented by item type. We could also use things like commodity codes if you want to set up commodity codes and look at it by commodity code. So you see this whole view just shifted and changed to different data points to aggregate up on. So there's a lot of different ways to aggregate that data. No wrong or right. And really when it gets down to specifics, we would just need to know kind of what your end result wants to be, and we could probably get there.
Okay.
And then core reporting, just since we're talking about reporting, the core reports is where I'm going in and with our report engine, what we've decided is we really don't know what kind of information that clients want to see because it varies just all over the place. So with our core reporting engines, what we've done is created over 50 standard reports. And with any of these reports, you can go in and personalize them and make them your own. So at any point, I could go in and make any of my reports whatever makes sense for me, right? So I could add columns, I could schedule them to show up in my inbox every Monday morning. I have a lot of control over my reports and when they get delivered and who they get delivered to. So going back to just the overall kind of product catalog, you'll see in our demo site, we have just about every kind of product configured in here, from print to personalized items to things like promo or apparel. Mike mentioned that you potentially have different storefronts for promo and apparel today?
No, we don't presently have any promotional stuff stored for Hologic. We have some other clients that we service on the promo side.
Okay, perfect. So I mean, if you do, you know, the Hologic team does decide to kind of branch out and provide more branded materials through here, it's built from the ground up to support all those kinds of different product items. So really anything with your brand on it can come through. From a personalization standpoint, we can fully personalize any products. So if you have different personalization rules, you can incorporate those at any point. And essentially what I mean by that is, you know, like something as simple as a business card or something like that, I can go and type in my name, I can personalize it, and it's all based on my own business, or excuse me, your brand business rules, right? So how much they can type, what they can type, do you want to lock these fields in and make them come from a single sign-on feed, what's editable or what's not. So extremely powerful personalization engine. And then from an approval standpoint, lots of different ways to manage approvals. So whether it's, we have kind of two sides of approvals in the platform. We have what we call the approval trigger. So the trigger is really going to run and determine what made an order go into an approval workflow, and then the workflow. So a trigger can be based on order quantities, dollar amounts, frequencies, you know, all these different kinds of things can trigger an approval. And then from a workflow perspective, we could send it out to, you know, per trigger, I could send it out to 3 different people. The first one who approves releases it, or it requires all 3 to approve. So a lot of different rules. One of the things that Mike and Connie mentioned, that, you know, you have a lot of enforcement today on making sure that quantities are protected or inventory is protected. So on kind of that vein, we have a lot of different ways to handle it, whether it's, you know, quarterly budgets, whether it's store dollars, whether you want to put hard limits on there that don't allow users to drive through. Lots of different mechanisms to do that. And really, when we talk about those kind of workflows, what we'd want to do is kind of back up from your your final goal, so whatever the final goal is, and kind of back into the best solution to give you a scalable architecture and maintain your goals, you know, whether it's protect inventory, protect dollars, whatever it is. And that's really the platform in a quick nutshell. I mean, we can get into a lot of details. So if there's something you want me to dive further in, you have the ability to do things like kits or ordering windows or dynamic kits. So a lot of different bells and whistles that can be turned on. And it's all based on kind of really and truly your business needs and what makes sense mainly for you.
So Rick, are there controls around shipping? Like if someone like set like a standard shipping being like, you know, ground, and if they wanted to do like next day air, is there a way for them to request that to some sort of an approver?
So trigger approvals based on carrier selection. We currently don't have that, but it's on the roadmap. So if that's something you need, I can get it pushed in this quarter. But we have approvals based on products or spend or different things. We can hide or show different carriers based on different user groups. But right now we don't have a trigger wired to it. But it wouldn't be too terribly hard for us to say, I want to wire a trigger to anybody who selects overnight.
Okay.
Is that one of the pain points right now? Folks overnighting things and costing a fortune?
I just know it's something that's come up. I mean, Valerie, you on? I mean, is that something that you could speak to as well? What you want people to do and how you want to control it?
Yeah, we would want to require approval for anything overnight.
Okay. What other kind of approval workflows do you think would be important?
I would want to be able to set approvals based on items, so like any item that's ordered by a certain user group, so maybe available to admins, but all other groups, any order for that item would require approval. And then we also have quantities in certain time frames, so if you order over 100 of this item in 1 month, it's going to require approval. And then if you were to request a different ship method outside of ground, that would require approval. I think that's all I can think of.
Yeah, so on kind of the product approvals, would it be something where you're saying, hey, you know, on this particular hat, you know, every user, no matter who you are, if somebody tries to order more than 100 a month, you know, or a 30-day roller, that's going to trigger an approval. So if any individual user, aside from an admin user, right, tries to order over 100 and within 30 days, we're going to trigger an approval. Is that kind of the rule?
Correct.
Oh, that's super.
Yeah, and actually, we might make it like if anyone wants to order one ever, it requires approval.
Yeah, so on the first order. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So in our system, that's called what we call product limits, and it's product limits with a little asterisk on it, where it's product limits that are going to trigger an approval, right? So per product, you can load a limit and say, hey, you know, this product is limited to 50 per X time frame, and if they go over that X time frame, it's going to trigger an approval workflow. So that's right down here. And so naturally, I mean, we would manage this for you, so you wouldn't have to do it, but you could go look at it at any point, or I mean, you could, in theory, update it yourself. But that's pretty. We would probably want to do it on a group level, just because of your product size and your user size. So you don't want to get into the minutia of going per, because it would be really daunting. But here we just say, hey, you know, for this group, you know, they get 500 every blah. And naturally, with your catalog, we would just do a load, right? And it's going to trigger an approval. So it sounds like one of the things we need to work on is on the checkout, making sure that we could trigger an approval based on carrier selection, right?
Yes.
Okay. And I don't think that would be a large challenge for us.
Eric, I define it more as, I mean, our carrier will always be like FedEx, so it would be more on service level, next day versus ground versus 2 day.
Yeah. So and with the carriers in your portal, you can present them any way you want. So I mean, you don't even have to say it's FedEx. You could just say ground, overnight, 2 day, whatever.
Okay.
Another question on the approvals. Currently, if I get an order in my queue to approve, it's not just approve or decline. I can actually edit the order before I approve it. Is that something you can do in here too?
Absolutely. You can remove items, change quantities, change. If you're the approver, essentially you have full control over that order until you release it, right? So it's you can append to it, you can tweak it, you can do kind of whatever you want. So this is a sample of an order approval. So I could add the little X, so I wanted to cancel that line. I could change the quantity. I could add to it. If I wanted to change the shipping address, you could even change the carrier. Right. So, hey, I don't want them to do overnight, do ground, or actually this one's already ground. But yes, you have the ability to do all that. So, Mike, Connie, is there anything I'm leaving out, or, from the whole logic side, or are there other things to paint some color on for you?
No, I think we've touched on most of the major, functionality that we need to show Hologic. Is there anything else on your side, Vic or Val or Brian, that you'd like to see, that you'd like to dive deeper into?
I have a couple questions. For emails generated from the system, is there like an order confirmation email? And if so, what is it, HTML, or what are we dealing with in that regard? Shipping confirmation, something like that.
Yeah, so the system's going to shoot out an order confirmation when the order's placed. If it's going through an approval, it basically says, hey, your order's pending approver. Then it'll email the approver and says, hey, you have an order waiting for approval. It has shipment confirmation, so as things ship, it's going to show you what line item shipped on that order and what did not ship on that order. All of our emails can be modified, so by default it would be our standard template and kind of the whole logic branding on it. But if you wanted to go through and change text or put different things on the email, you have the ability to do that.
Okay, great. And then just jumping back to you said it was really granular, in terms of permissions for users. So right now we have some reps and distributors that need access to 2 different divisions, right? Or certain products that are outside of the norm, but it does come up quite a bit. So we've run into a situation where we just have to create like 1 million different user groups.
Yeah.
I'm sure Connie is nodding her head. Is there a way that you had the same user group, but you could tweak them within that group? Or if when you say granular, does that mean like we can just continue to do what we've been doing and just create a whole bunch of different user groups in order to fill those specific needs?
Really what we'd want to do is really kind of understand why you created the user groups you have today, and then we'd want to look at it. We also have it, so one thing that we have slightly different is, let's just say it's really the difference between these different groups of users is mainly which products they see. We have what's called an inclusion tag you can put on a product, and essentially a tag on a product is just going to have to line up to the tag on the user, right? So it could be a many thing, and that makes it so you can create one overall kind of product category hierarchy, right? So flyers or by your divisions or whatnot, and then by users, they only can see products that pertain to them. So it would really, there's different ways to skin that, and it really kind of comes into understanding, what are those cases and what all do you have? Because I know one of the conversations with Connie was there was a couple hundred user groups potentially, which seems like there has to be a way for us to better consolidate that. And I don't know if there is or not, right? I'm speaking from an outsider. But I'll say, in our experience, and we have some very large marketers on the platform, a couple hundred user groups is a lot of overhead just to manage. And if there's a way we can skin it a little bit more simplistic and still meet the same end goal, then we could evaluate that for sure.
Yeah, part of it's just cleanup, I think, over the years.
Yeah.
Maybe there was somebody in a certain role that needed specific access that we couldn't give them in existing user groups, so we created a new one, but maybe that role doesn't even exist anymore, right? I don't think we have a mechanism right now to go back and clean it up. So that's part of it.
And then one of the questions is, so, and this is more, I just don't understand Hologic's business, right? So it's a question, it's not a challenge, but you know, is there damage if one rep sees bone and one rep sees, if they see them both? Are they that segmented?
I mean,
I guess that your organization might be that segmented, right?
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
it is that segmented.
Okay.
And the
That's
whole
fair
point
enough.
of this is ease of use too. So at least for me, the reason that I was pushing for an upgrade or a change was because I've got over 200 reps in the field that don't have time to be at a desktop very much. So I need this site to look really good and be intuitive and easy to use on their mobile devices. That was big. And
Mhm.
also don't want them sifting through
Tons of stuff.
materials for other divisions that they don't need. So we want to keep it really as clean and simple and easy to use as possible. That's like my number one priority.
Yeah, and I think search is going to help a lot with that, because with search, you know, they'll be able to go in and quickly find the exact products that they want to do. You can daisy chain on top of search, and you don't, you know, the more information we put in your descriptions or your product names or your SKUs, the better search becomes. But it looks within kits, looks within configured items. You can daisy chain on top of searches. So, you know, here's blue and shirt. There's all my blue shirts. I could do negative terms. So I don't want to see anything that's easy. I could just knock out easies. So really quickly, you know, I can drill into a search that I want to do, which is more important on the your larger ones. And then one of the things we'd also want to evaluate is, you know, from your, so if it's mainly like a sales rep kind of marketing connection, you know, how often does each sales rep have to go in and place their order? Is this a daily thing for them? Is it, you know, twice a week? And, you know, is there ways for us to kit things up or group things a little bit better so we can reduce the frequency that they have to hit the site, and things like that?
Mm-hmm.
But it's meant
So Rick,
to
you talk
be.
about
Oh, go ahead.
Rick, you talk about kitting things. Can you like create almost like your own kits under favorites? Like, let's say there's 3 things they always order for a specific customer, or sometimes they do. Sometimes they need them individually, but sometimes it's like they use these 3 things, maybe some sort of starter kit. And I'm making this stuff up because I'm not in marketing, but is there a way to basically create your own like mini kits and keep it in favorites, and then you could just go in and basically hit that button and it orders those 3 items for you?
So we have the like abilities to build kits. So like this is a kit build, but it's not per user that kind of builds their own, right? So I mean, it's per this session, right? So right now I'm going to go build this kit that I like, but it's only good for this session. And after I place this order, all I can do is reorder the order. That said, when your sales reps are placing orders, are they shipping directly to their targets, or are they shipping to themselves and then they hand it out? Just out of curiosity.
Most of the times they're shipping to themselves and handing out, at least for my division.
Right. Which is the norm. Going straight to consumers could be expensive. And, you know, typically when somebody orders a flyer, they have to order at least 20. And one person doesn't need 20 flyers unless you're a sales rep.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I mean, you know, it's meant to kind of be that simplistic way, and once they place orders, they can reorder. So if I have orders that I've done in the past, I can reorder it. So and that's one of the checkout fields that you could do is called it's called order tagging. So an order tag is just a way for me personally, whoever the user is, to say, this is my favorite order, right? So when I'm placing an order, I say, hey, this is the one I'm going to reorder, and then you can search it, and then literally to reorder, you just go find that order and hit reorder, right, at any point, and then it's off and running. So there's lots of mechanisms to try to shortcut that. We can also do things like bulk distributions, but it sounds like your end users really wouldn't use that. That would be more of a thing if somebody at corporate wanted to push a new flyer down to 200 reps at once. You have the ability to do those kind of bulk checkouts, right? So if you wanted to push stuff down to them, you could do it that way, and kind of going from there. So this was my reorder, basically populated this huge cart. What other kind of challenges could we talk through?
Rick, I can't think of any on my end here.
So from the initial thoughts from the whole logic, I know that from a kind of a team basis, it's sometimes, you know, turning around an aircraft carrier, and it's not going to be immediate. And, you know, when you buy the next generation aircraft carrier, it could be tricky to learn the ins and outs of it. So how would you suggest that this ship looks, number one, and then, you know, when we start trying to eat that elephant, where do we start?
I can jump in here. At least from my concerns, and everybody else on the phone, feel free to jump in. I know we don't have all the divisions represented, but this site looks much more intuitive. The site that we have is not terrible. It functions in the way that we need it to and does a lot of the things that this site does too. It just does it in an old clunky package that our reps find difficult to use and just not really convenient. So it looks like when you are changing the size of your browser that it is responsive. So that's big for me. I think the filtering, you can filter in our current site, but set up differently, whereas this is set up more like your typical e-commerce experience that, right, any rep, like you just started yesterday, you open this up on your iPad and you can place an order. It's without needing any
without
assistance.
training. Yeah.
Without training and probably on your first try instead of like having to dig around a bunch of places. So I feel good about that. All the personalization is there. The reporting is still robust, which is important. The admin and approval function is still there, which is important. So I feel good about it from that point of view.
Okay.
I guess I'd have more concerns in terms of like the Goodway stuff in terms of tying our inventory into a new system and what that looks like and what kind of time that takes, but that's a separate conversation. But like anything else, it would be a rollout to the field, so it'll need some training, but like I said, it seems pretty intuitive, which I think is good.
Perfect.
And I have one more question. Did you say that single sign-on was an option? Because I know
absolutely.
that's another thing that would be really great so that we don't do so much like password reset and stuff if we could have our reps use their network.
Do y'all have like an
login
Okta or a one login that you know of?
I don't know what it's actually called. Vic, do you know?
I just refer to it as single sign-on. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, we support it.
I don't know the technical IS behind it. We could get our IS folks though, but it sounds like you integrate with a couple of different ways in that.
Yeah.
So I don't think it'll be an issue.
Perfect.
Okay.
That definitely is a plus.
Yeah, single sign-on, especially if you have, let's say you have more than 100 end users, single sign-on is really vital, just because they won't remember it. And all you're doing is resetting passwords or waiting for a reset password or, it's just,
we're pretty good in terms of like within Hologic, like I would say the vast majority of our systems are single sign-on now, which is great. So it would be good if we could check this in too.
Yeah, so and more than likely y'all are using like a SAML standard at your size, so we would most notably be able to support it right out of the gate. The key on that, however, is that single sign-on needs to also let us know a little bit of information about the user that's going to help us craft their experience, right? So, you know, if you're a bone person, that single sign-on has to be knowledgeable of that, right? Because we're going to take that handoff straight from the single sign-on and present to that user.
I think we would have that, right, Valerie? I mean,
You should.
we have that information.
I think so.
You should.
When I look people up, we know what divisions they're in, right? So.
Right. Yeah. Shouldn't be a problem. We'd have to get, if and when we get there, we'd have to just get IS on the phone and talk it through. But.
Stellar.
So I think that's about it from our end, Rick and Mike. Thanks for presenting this to us. So Mike and Rick, I know we have another presentation tomorrow for the folks who couldn't make it today. I see Valerie on here, but most of the other divisions are missing. So I'm hoping that they'll be there tomorrow. That's why we did the 2 sessions. We're also recording it as well. Valerie, so we'll be able to share it with the folks that won't be able to make either one of the sessions. And then we'll kind of regroup as a team after we've done both sessions and see who attended, who didn't, and talk with internally, and then talk with Mike about possible next steps.
Stellar.
Excellent. Thank you, Vic. Thank you, Rick and Mark, for the presentation. It was great, and we'll all talk again soon.
All right. Thank you.
Sounds
Bye,
good.
everyone.
Y'all have a great
Thank
day.
you, guys.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.